Hi everyone, it's Kristie here from KP Creatives with another video for Two Scrapbook Friends, and we are so excited that you are here to join us for this summer event. So to celebrate summer, we are going with a theme today with everyone's, well, maybe not everyone, a lot of people's favorite summer drink, lemonade. And we're going to make a Make Lemonade card that really celebrates all things summer. And we're going to make it into a shaker card. So if you're new to making shaker cards, or if you've never made one before, hopefully you'll learn some tips and tricks along the way. I've got the list of supplies here, and I will pop that up again at the end of the video so that you can take a screenshot and begin adding things to your cart if you would like to make this card on your own. So we've got a lot of things happening here on this card. We're going to be doing some ink blending. So I've got my brushes from Tailored Expressions all set to go in yellow and orange. And I'm going to be using some new to me inks from Pink Fresh Studio. The Pink Fresh Studio inks, you can get them in these great little cube sets that are already grouped by color. This particular set is called Rise and Shine, and we're going to be using Marigold, Sunshine, and Lemon Whip. Those are the three inks we'll use for our project today. We will not use the fourth one in this collection, which is called Sweet Mustard. So I'm just going to set that off to the side. And I'm also going to set off to the side our crystals that we will use from Studio Katya because I can just see those going flying across the desk and having an unpleasant cleanup in aisle 5 of the craft room. So we're going to get those over to the side and off to safety, and we will use them when we're ready. I've got standard adhesive here. We've got some tape runner, liquid glue, foam tape, as well as score tape. We've got a lot of things that we're adhering together, so there's lots of adhesive as part of this project, and some regular tools, a jewel pick tool, tweezers, scissors, etc. And of course our Lawn Fawn Teflon bone folder. The other pieces that we're going to be using today are the detailed black ink from Pink Fresh Studio for the sentiment stamping. And the stamp set we're going to be using is the Make Lemonade stamp and die set from Lawn Fawn. This is one of the small sets from Lawn Fawn, and these sets are really great for your planners, for scrapbooking, and also card making. And I know we might not think of a lemonade stamp and die set for card making, but I thought this was really fun to send some summer greetings out to friends who might have been dealt a couple of lemons lately, and just to bring them a little bit of bright sunshine and fun through the mail. We're going to be using some of the Neenah Classic Crest Solar White 110 pound weight for our card base. So we're going to be making a standard A2 size card, and it's going to be in portrait orientation. So that means it's 4 1/4 inches across and 5 1/2 inches tall. I've already cut this, so this is from an 8 1/2 by 11 piece of paper, cut down the middle and scored at 5 1/2. So that will be our nice heavyweight card base. And then we're also going to be using a piece of the Neenah Classic Crest Solar White 80 pound to make some custom cardstock. And I've got another piece of the 80 pound to do our stenciling on. As part of our project today, we're going to be making a custom envelope. This lemon paper is from the Some Days collection from Pink Fresh Studio, and it's called Make Lemonade. So it has this great, bright, fun lemon pattern on one side, and then there's some words that you could cut out for tags on the other side. There's also some great lemon paper in the Echo Park Pool Party collection. You could use any coordinating cardstock that you would like. What you're gonna need if you're gonna make your own envelope is a piece that is 8 1/2 inches by 8 1/2 inches. So if you've got in your stash some great yellows or greens, or even there's a little bit of light purple or light lilac on this paper, that would go great with this card project as well. So use what you've got, or get some of this new lemon paper, which is really fun and will go great with our project today. We're also going to be using one of the new layering stencils from Pink Fresh Studio. This one is Layered Sunburst, and I'm going to pull it out here so you can see what you get with this stencil. You actually get three stencils, and they are all labeled, and I know it's going to be really difficult to see on the video, but they have numbers in the top left corner, stencil 1, 2, and 3. So when you are using layering stencils like this one, the first one has the biggest space. And we want to use, as I mentioned, these 3 inks together. So you want to make sure you're starting with the lightest color ink. So if you're playing along here and you aren't using these Pink Fresh Studio inks, just make sure with whatever 3 inks you have chosen, you're going to start first with the lightest one you have. So I'm going to take this piece of the Neenah Classic Crest Solar White in the 80-pound paper, and I'm just going to tuck this stencil down into the corner, grab some purple tape so that I can adhere the stencil down to our paper, and then we're going to get rolling with our ink blending. So we're going to reuse this same piece of tape for all 3 stencils. So I'm just getting it positioned so that it will act as a little bit of a hinge when we switch stencils. We'll just be able to lift up and put the new one on. And I'm going to put a little bit more purple tape down on this side just so we don't get things wiggling all around. All right, so I'm going to grab my yellow blending brush from Tailored Expressions, and we're going to start with Lemon Whip. So the Pink Fresh Studio inks are new to me, and I've really been enjoying using them for stamping and for different techniques. And I really love that, especially for the ink cubes, they sell them in those color families. So it really takes the guesswork out, especially when you're doing projects like layering stencils. You know that the colors are going to go together. You don't have to spend time thinking, oh, is this going to blend together nicely? Am I going to get a bit of mud? What is that going to look like? So really great to be able to have that guesswork all taken care of for you, and you just go ahead and start crafting and putting these great colors together. So I will say, when you're using these layering stencils, the first one, for this set in particular, the first one does take a little bit of time because these are big open spaces that we are getting inked up. And I do want to get a decent amount of ink down because we want to be able to show off this awesome sunburst pattern. Now, I'm not making a deliberate fade and making it, more concentrated to the middle and fading out, but it's kind of doing that on its own. And I think that's a really neat look, and that will be okay because we actually are going to be trimming this panel down. So that's the other thing when you're working with stencils, you can trim out whatever size piece you're going to want onto your card front. So in this case, we're actually going to trim this piece of paper down to 4 inches across to 5 1/4 tall. So we're going to end up getting a nice even margin on our card base that will just give a little bit of separation from our panel to the base, and it really does make a difference in your final project. So I'm just continuing to load up this yellow brush here and get all the ink down. We're more than halfway done with stencil number 1. And I promise you, stencil 2 and 3 do go a little bit faster because there's not as much space to cover. The other thing that I find handy when you're working with stencils, especially if you're doing ink blending, move the piece of paper around. We sometimes get stuck when we're crafting and we work down so that we only have this much space to work in and we don't move anything around. But it really does help to move things around on your table or your work surface. Make sure you're doing whatever works best for you in your crafty workflow. So you can see with these Pink Fresh Studio inks, they're really great to blend. I'm not tapping this off at all, and I'm not getting any harsh marks on my paper, which I really, really like. So these are great inks to do blending with and some techniques. And of course, using the blender brushes, whatever brand you have. I know there's a lot of companies that have them, but they really do make a difference. So if ink blending is new for you and you're blending with dye inks specifically, give these brushes a try. There are other tools that are available, like the Dome foam from Ranger. That's their new one. They also have the classic foam that's available. But there's a lot of great blending tools. So make sure you give a couple a try and see what works for you. So we're all done with stencil 1 here. I'm going to peel this up and take it off of the tape. And you can see the great sunburst pattern that we've started there. And you know what? You could even leave your panel like this if you wanted. And I really like that because it really speaks to the many uses you can have of these stencils, which is great. So we're now going to work with Sunshine for stencil number 2. I'm going to use the same yellow blending brush because we're still in the yellow family, so no need to switch things up or change. And you'll see right away that this Sunshine color is a deeper yellow, and it's going to overlap in some areas with the Lemon Whip. In other areas, it will stand alone on its own. So just working around this sunburst here, inking this all up. Once we're done this panel, we're going to die cut the lemonade pitcher out of the middle. Now I pre-did that. I've already done one of these stencil backgrounds, and it's dried. But if you're playing along right now and you want to be working in real time, grab your heat tool and you can heat set the background once we're done inking it up with stencil number 3, just to make sure when we run it through the die cutting machine that you're not going to get any additional, or not additional, but you're not going to get any smudges. All right. So I think we're all set and finished with the Sunshine ink. We're going to peel off stencil number 2. And you'll start to see where the inks overlap and getting all those spaces filled in. And I just love this stencil. I'm going to pop on stencil 3 here, and I really can't wait to try this with different colors of ink. I'm itching to try it with rainbow colors. I think you could do some really fun masking techniques and use more than 3 colors around the sunburst. I think that'd be pretty cool. So the last color, I'm switching brushes into the orange family here, and we're going to ink up with that marigold ink and work our way one last time around the sunburst. So getting some of that nice orange color. I think this is so fun. It will be a nice bright greeting for someone who's been dealt a couple of lemons. As I said earlier, I think this is a fun card to send to people who may be going through a bit of a rough time. So you can see the stencil shifted just a tiny bit there. If you find it's shifting a lot on you, you could always use pixie spray to be able to have this adhere to your paper. Pixie spray is a light tack adhesive. I have not used it with layering stencils actually, because I find with these ones the space on the stencils is fairly forgiving, so there's not a lot of intricate patterns, especially on a stencil like this one that's more of that burst and line pattern. It seems to work okay just without the pixie spray, some purple tape, and some pressure from your hand just to hold things in place whenever you need to. Okay, so we're all done with the marigold ink. We're going to take a look at the final results from all 3 of those stencils. And here we go. So there you have this great layered pattern. And again, I think it'll be super fun to try this with different inks. Now, the next thing we're going to do is make some custom cardstock. So when I was going through my stash, I found a lot of different yellows that I had, but they weren't matching as closely as I wanted to this background. So I'm going to take another piece of the Neenah Solar White Classic Crest in the 80 pound, and we're going to take that Lemon Whip ink. We're going to get that back out again. And we are going to make our own custom cardstock. So I want the Lemon Whip color to show through when we cut out the lemonade pitcher in the middle of this card. So what I'm going to do is take my ink cube. You could also use the full-size ink pad if that's what you have. And we're just going to go direct to paper. Just smush down that Lemon Whip ink right onto the paper. You can go back and forth, you can turn the paper, and you can see as we go here, it's getting more of that ink right onto that Neenah Classic Crest paper. I'm not going to completely soak this paper with the ink. I just want it to get that nice Lemon Whip color, so that when we do the die cutting on our other panel, the Lemon Whip color will show through. So I think that's probably, actually maybe I'll do a little bit more in the center here. So this is a really great trick if you are looking to match something on your project. Make your own colored cardstock. It really works well and gives great results. So this doesn't have, 100% full coverage. That's okay. I'm actually going to be stamping over top of it, so I'm not too worried. And it's going to be a lemonade pitcher, so it kind of looks like there's pulp in the lemonade, and I think it'll be totally great for this project. So these are the two pieces that we just worked on. I have two additional pieces. So this one I inked up direct to paper yesterday. So you can see as it dries a little bit lighter, and you can still see some of the variation in the color through. So we're going to be stamping on this, so it's really nice to have a dry piece. If you are doing this right away and in real time, hit this piece with your heat tool, get it nice and hot, and just dry this up so that you're not going to get any bleeding or anything on your final project. And then we also have the piece of our blended panel, and so you can see, I can line that up there. You can see that we used exactly the same techniques and color. I die cut from the Make Lemonade stamp set. I die cut the pitcher right out of the middle and ran that through my die cut machine. So again, if you're following along in real time, hit this with your heat tool before you run it through your die cut machine. That way you won't get any smudging on your final panel. So I'm going to set this aside and I'll make a second card out of it later. So now what we're going to do is start to put together our shaker card. And one thing I realized I forgot to have out at the beginning, it's on the list of supplies, but I forgot to have it out, was the acetate sheets. This pack is from Hero Arts. You can use any acetate that you have. And if you don't have any acetate handy, you can use packaging from your stamp collections. So, these clear stamps usually come with 2 pieces of this acetate, and you can use that in your shaker cards. So lots of different things you can use to be able to make your shaker card and put it all together. So first thing we're going to do is get out some score tape. Any size score tape will work here. I happen to have the 1/4 inch score tape on hand, so that's what I'm going to use. And I'm going to get these pieces of the tape down all around the edges of this acetate sheet. And we're going to adhere this right to the back to create the first section of our shaker window. So we're going to get the release paper off of the score tape. If score tape is new to you, it is a very strong, excellent adhesive. I love using it for shaker cards because it really helps me to know that I'm not going to have anything, coming apart at all in my project. So I'm just going to take this piece of acetate and simply pop it down on the back. So now we have the start of our shaker window. Now what we need to do is build up dimension on the back because we want our crystals to move around quite a bit. So what we're gonna do is take some foam tape, and I'm making quite a long strip of foam tape here, and I'm just doubling it over on itself. So instead of just one layer, so here we have one layer of foam tape, now we have two. And I'm probably gonna have to do that a couple times so that we have enough tape on enough dimension built up on the back of the shaker. So I'm gonna see here, this first piece, go there, second piece here. We're gonna peel off one side of the release paper and start to build up the dimension on the back here. And we want to build up this foam tape so that this area right here where the picture will be free for the sequins and crystals to move around. But we want to make sure that we're building up that dimension pretty nicely throughout the rest of the panel so that it will stay nice and strong and be popped up on the rest of the card. So let's keep going here. Again, I'm going to peel off a nice long strip of the foam tape. I'm folding it back onto itself and pressing those sticky sides together, and cut that. And then we're going to start to work across here and fill in the rest of the gaps here. So one thing that I have learned the hard way when making shakers is sometimes I get really excited, and as soon as I finish adhering this foam tape down, I peel the release paper off the back. And I'm here to tell you that that's a really bad idea because I have been in an unfortunate situation before where I've done that and then I go to put my sequins down and they stick to everything. So you really want to wait to peel off that final release paper until you know exactly where your sequins are going to be going. And I'm going to tell you a couple little tricks here if as you're putting your shaker together, if you make a little misstep, there are several different ways to save your projects. So shakers are truly one of those things that you can make, 10 of them, and then all of a sudden you go to make shaker card number 11 and you miss a step and you're like, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? But I'm going to show you a couple ways to save those things. So I want to put 2 more pieces just to keep this nice and tight to the picture. So for these last pieces, I'm just going to fold them in half lengthwise, peel up a bit of that release paper just halfway, and stick it down into this little section so that we're getting a really nice tight border around that picture. If you find that your sequins or crystals, whatever you're using, when you're making shaker cards, that they stick to the foam tape too much and you don't get as much movement as you would like, what you can do is give the adhesive a little bit of tap with your anti-static powder tool. It really takes some of that stickiness away and will allow your gems or sequins to move around a little freer. Okay, so we've got our card base, our acetate sheet, and our double layer of foam tape. I think this is setting up to be a fantastic shaker. So let's get working on stamping the picture, and then we'll be close to ready to getting this all together. So we don't need this entire sheet of this custom cardstock that we made. I only need a piece big enough to cover the the back of the die cut piece that we cut out. So we're going to stamp it somewhere in the middle here, and then we'll trim this down so that it's not sticking out over the rest of our project. I'm going to bring in the Misty stamping tool here. We're going to put down our piece of custom cardstock here and go back to this Lawn Fawn Make Lemonade stamp set to grab the picture. And then once we've finished this part, we will stamp the sentiment on the rest of the panel. So we don't need to worry about this being straight. Again, we're going to cut around this. We'll make sure it fits perfectly within the panel, so we don't have to be too worried about precision at this point. I'm going to bring in the Pink Fresh Studio Detail Black ink, and we're going to ink up that lemonade picture. And bring down the door of the Misty. I have seen a lot of people are using tools now to add extra pressure onto their Misty. I'm using a dry erase board eraser just to get a little bit of additional pressure down, and it works great. So if that's something that you wanted to try, I highly recommend using the dry erase eraser for something like that. And you can see I'm gonna have to grab a baby wipe because I just completely flipped over this this black ink, and thank goodness that didn't land on my project. But we'll have to do a little cleanup there before we move on to our next step. So just giving that a nice press, making sure we get a good impression. And I think my magnet is causing a little bit of height to happen against the door of the Misty just on this one corner. So we're gonna ink it up one more time, and this should give us a great impression. There we go. Perfect. So I'm gonna set that aside, let that dry for a moment. Let's get this cleaned up here. Always nice to have some baby wipes or your stamp chamois, whatever cleanup tools you use. Keep them handy because you never know when you're going to need a quick cleanup or a quick tidy. Okay, so we're going to take off the picture stamp and put that back in the stamp set package. And I'm going to grab the Make Lemonade sentiment, and we are going to put that right on the front of our panel. So since we have a lot of dimension already with the double layers of foam tape, I'm going to take the foam insert out of the Misty and put our project right down in the Misty door. Now, one thing that can be tricky is if you are stamping your sentiment onto your card panel and you want to make it straight, the last thing you want is to have a crooked sentiment. So what I like to do is bring in my T ruler, line it up against the side of the Misty, and just give it a nudge. Now, depending on the sentiment you're using, you might want to do this from the top of it. This lemonade word is fairly straight on the bottom, so I'm pretty comfortable we can line that up nicely. And that will make sure we get a nice straight sentiment on our final project. So this one is just causing me a little bit of problems here because it's sticking to the ruler a little bit, but there we go. So that'll be a nice straight sentiment on our final card here. So we're gonna pick up that stamp with the door of the Misty, bring in that detail black ink one more time, ink up our sentiment, and we're gonna go for it. Again, bringing in that dry erase eraser, and that looks really good. There's just a little bit of a spot on the E on make that I'd like to make a little bit darker, so we'll hit this with that black ink one more time. And that's the great thing about the Misty. I know my stamp didn't move, my card base didn't move, and we get a fantastic impression on our final card front. So let's get the Misty put back together here. Pop back in our foam insert, and away we go. All right, so now I'm going to bring this piece back, and like I mentioned, we can cut this down because we don't need this full panel and we need it to be smaller anyways, so that it will fit on the back of our card. So I'm just going to take my scissors quickly and cut down pieces on the side and on the bottom. And again, this does not have to be precise at all. So let's see if that will work. And I see I still need to get some off the top and the other side. You could use your paper trimmer for this as well. My paper trimmer is safely away right now, so I don't need to bring out the heavy machinery for this project. So when you get to this point of your shaker, sometimes things can get a little confusing. So what you could do is leave it exactly like this, take the release paper off, put another small piece of acetate behind. That makes it really easy because then your crystals are enclosed. You can put some additional score tape on the back and then flip it over without your sequins flying all over the place. That's one way to do this. Another way is to put your sequins right on top of the image that you stamped, and then you can kind of maneuver your card panel around to be able to get it in exactly the right spot that you want. So that's what we're going to do today. Because I think that will be the easiest way to get things onto our project and put the final piece together. But that option is there for sure if you wanted to just put the sequins right in here and then put another piece of acetate behind it. It works perfectly well because the acetate doesn't add any bulk to your project at all. So if you're not comfortable doing it this way, do it that way. Works perfectly fine. I actually have had to do it that way. I kind of learned that by accident because I was putting together a shaker card and went, oh my goodness, how on earth am I going to do this? I've put my sequins in and I can't turn this over. So rest assured, everything can be solved with, a little bit of score tape and some extra supplies. So I'm putting some liquid glue down on top of the foam tape so that when we do turn this over and we start to put the final piece together, we're going to be able to have a little bit of wiggle room and make sure we get this exactly positioned right on top of our picture. So I thought these crystals from Studio Katya were really fun. I thought they kind of symbolized ice in this picture of lemonade, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to take a few of the ginormous ones out and add in a couple of the little ones. I think the little ones will get us some really nice movement of things shaking around on this card. Okay, so this looks great. I'm sure some of you have tried many different pokey tools and jewel pick tools like this one over the course of your crafting careers, and I cannot say enough good things about this jewel pick tool from Maker Forte. You could see me picking up, medium-sized gems, small gems, and it really works great. I love that it has this other end available to shimmy things around on your projects. It's just absolutely fantastic. So I think we've got a nice amount of sequins in there that'll get us some really nice shaking when we put the final piece together. So I'm going to take our panel, flip it upside down, and we are going to get this positioned right over top of the picture. And I can see that I've got that nice outline, and we are pressing down and getting that card front right over top of it where we wanted. And you can see that I made a little bit of a mistake and dropped this. So there's, great pieces of glue all over my media mat, but I'm going to take care of that in a moment. So there you go. We've got some really nice shaking happening with that project. So I'm actually just going to turn this over, let it sit off to the side for a second while I clean up from the glue fiasco. All right. Now all that we have left to do is put this onto our final card panel, and we are then going to move on to making our custom envelope. So I'm bringing in my Creative Grids ruler here because I want to be able to make sure, sorry, my mat's just a little bit wet from that baby wipe, so I'm just going to dry that off. I've got my ruler from Creative Grids here. I'm going to come in 1/8 of an inch from the left-hand side, and this is going to help me get great placement with my final card and be able to have it perfectly placed for equal margins. I'm going to get a little bit more of the liquid glue just on the back of my panel here. That'll be great. And we're going to get this right in up against that ruler. And we can press down with confidence. We know that we've got some great margin space all around the card. Super. So again, really nice shaker elements there. I really love how that's turned out. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our envelope. So as I mentioned, you're going to want to start with a piece of paper that's 8.5 inches square. So 8.5 by 8.5. You're going to bring in your envelope punch board, and when I'm making A2 size cards, I like to make the next size up on the envelope because as card makers, we add a lot of dimension to our projects, and sometimes they don't, they fit too snugly in the A2 size envelope. So I go one size larger, which seems to help quite a bit. So based on the instructions that are set here on the punch board, we want to line up our paper at 3 3/4 inches, and you can see the score line here. So we're going to line up at 3 3/4 inches. We're going to punch. Then we're going to take our bone folder and follow along the score line that's on the board. Once you've scored your first line, you're going to rotate counterclockwise, and this is a really important step. On the first turn, you do not line up to 3 3/4. What you line up, and I know it's hard to see here, is the point on this punch with the line you just scored. So here's the line we scored. We've got this point lined up perfectly. We're going to punch and score again. Okay, now we're going to rotate counterclockwise again. We're not worrying about the measurements up here. We're making sure that the line we just scored is lined up with that point on the punch. Press, and we're going to do that one more time. Oh, sorry. I lined it up but didn't score. So you line it up, punch, and score. It's kind of an important part of the process here. So make sure you do that. And then one last time, we're going to line up with our score line, punch, and score. Then one more step while you've got your punch board out. On the long flaps of your envelope, you're going to slide it into this side of the punch board, and it's going to round the corners. So you get a nice finished edge on your envelope. You do not need to do it on the short flaps because they're going to be covered and no one's going to see those. So, I mean, you can do it if you'd like, but it's not necessary. So then you're going to take your bone folder and fold in the flaps, give it a nice press. The Teflon bone folder really makes sure you get some really awesome crisp edges, creates a really great finish on your envelopes. And again, this is the Some Days paper from Pink Fresh Studio, and it's the one called Make Lemonade. So sometimes the paper that you're using has direction. So I really don't want to send this through the mail this way because the lemons are upside down. So I want to make sure it's going through this way. So we're going to put 2 pieces of score tape on the bottom section here. And that's going to form the bottom part of our envelope. So get this down. This score tape, again, really strong adhesive. It's great for envelopes. It really stands up through the mail, and you'll have no problems with things coming apart. I know some people might think using the score tape is a bit over the top for envelopes. I think I shared in another video. My nephews, they are 5 and 7, and they live in Alberta. So we send them cards often and little greetings. And when they get cards, they always say, "Oh my gosh, the glue is so strong in Ontario," because the score tape really, you know, keeps things together. So there we have it. We've got our custom envelope, and we've got our Make Lemonade shaker card, all set for some fun summer greetings for people who may have been dealt a couple of lemons lately. You can bring some sunshine to them with your greeting. So again, here's the list of supplies that we used for today's project. I hope you had fun creating this shaker card. If you like shaker cards, you can do really cool things, especially when you have coordinating stamp and die sets like this one from Lawn Fun. So I hope this inspires you to try shaker cards, to try these layering stencils from Pink Fresh Studio. Try their inks if you haven't had a chance yet. Great way to start is, you know, pick your favorite color and get that set of 4 inks, and I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. So if you have a moment, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll be notified when we make new videos. And thanks again for crafting along with us. We will see you next time.